So I'm making this video for Kate as she's struggling with getting the pattern information from a Mylar sheet onto the needles of the machine for patterning. So I'm just going to run through the whole procedure of putting in the Mylar sheet into the memory of the 950i and then proceeding to knit it. So this one is just a pre-printed sheet that came with the 910 card number 3, but of course you can make your own patterns, and I actually gave Kate some misinformation with the 950 and 950i. I said that you're only supposed to dot the sheet with the pen very lightly, but in actual fact that doesn't read properly on the card reader, and that's not actually what the instruction manual says, which I thought it did. What it actually tells you to do is to draw the design out on a paper design sheet first, and then dot the outline of where you need to fill in the squares with the pen, and then once you've dotted the outline, fill the squares in. So if you just dot the paper, or the Mylar sheet rather, with the pen, there is a good chance it won't read it properly. So it does need to be quite bold like this for it to read properly. But anyway, this is just the sheet I've grabbed. This is as I say, a pre-printed one. I'm going to knit this design here, this as a motif. So in order to read the card on the 950i, it's slightly different on the 950 because it only reads one Mylar sheet and stores the memory of one Mylar sheet at a time, whereas the 950 can store up to 28. So anyway, I'm just going to put this one card in. So for storing the information for one Mylar sheet, switch the machine on. The ready light's lit, enter 777, press the memory button. Gives you a pattern number for your design, in my case 906, press the memory button. And the light on either side of the boat on the card comes on. This is asking you how many cards wide your design is. Well, mine's only one, so I'm going to key 1 and press the memory button. Now it's asking you these two lights at the top of the boat, the top and bottom of the boat on the card there. It's asking you how many cards long your design is. Again, mine's just one sheet, so I'm just going to put 1. Press the memory button and the ready light comes on again. Next thing we need to do is move my carriage out the way. You need to turn the machine off because you can't advance the card manually with the machine on. The machine has to be off. Put the card into the reader and then use these guidelines here to help you get it straight, and then line the card up very carefully with the set line so it's just above or just sinking below the casing here. It can't be like that or like that. It's got to be right about on it, like that. Then you can switch the machine back on. Another thing, make sure you've got your card roll guides on the back here and the little stem here which stops the card from flopping about. And we just press CF. Since we've turned the machine back on, the computer remembers everything you've just told it, so it will just carry on where it left off before we switched off the power. So now press CF, which means card forward, and it will read line by line the 150 rows and 60 stitches of this Mylar sheet. When it's finished reading the card, it spits it back out and you can just remove it. So now we need our Mylar sheet to get the coordinates from, so the stitches and the rows. So I've got my machine switched on here and the ready light is lit. I'm going to enter 990, which is simple patterning. If you wanted to position, in my case I'm doing a single motif, but if I wanted to change around how I wanted those motifs placed, I would have to enter 999. for advanced patterning, which gives you access to these other lights here. But basic patterning is fine for this particular motif. So 990 for basic patterning. The green light here comes on, it's asking me to check my variation keys and the pattern selector switch. Well, I'm doing a single motif, so I want the selector switch up to the top. Press the memory button again, and the pattern number light comes on. So the pattern this Mylar sheet was stored under was 906. Push the memory button. Now the bottom line of my pattern here, you can see, is 1. So row 1, memory button. What's the top line? That is 30. Row 30. Stitch at the left is stitch 1, and the stitch at the right is 60. Push the memory button, and it asks you for the first needle position, where do you want the design positioned on the garment? Well, as this is 60 stitches wide, I'm just, in this case, just for the sake of the video, I'm just going to place it in the centre of my needle bed. So half the pattern width is 30, so I'm going to have my first needle position as yellow 30, and the position on the left side again will be yellow 30 because I want it in the middle, and it will be green 30 on the right to make the 60 stitches. If you were just doing an all over design, after you'd entered the coordinates, you press the memory button, it would just ask you for the first needle position, and then it would go back to ready. But as I'm doing a motif, it's asked me where I wanted to place it on the garment. Now, as the 950i has already stored all the information on this sheet, this Mylar sheet, we don't need the Mylar sheet in the reader because it will just be knitting the pattern from the memory storage of the 950i. But if you needed memo information, you insert the card, make sure the machine's switched off, and line it up with the set line. Switch the machine back on. I'm going to have to go just out of shot here, but I'm going to set the carriage to KC2 for a single motif, which cancels end needle selection. If it was an all over pattern, KC1. Okay, I'm outside the turn mark. Now, I think this is where Kate was going wrong, because you can see over here, hopefully, you can see the display is blank. And if we started knitting now, there would be no needle selection at all. I'll just quickly show you that. I'm on KC2, but I've not pressed CF for card forward, so the display is still blank. The machine thinks I've not set up my pattern yet. So if I start knitting, see, nothing happens. If I was in KC1, all I would get was the end needles. You can see the card is not advancing. Okay. So I'm going to go outside the left turn mark here. I'm going to press CF, and that will take the card to row 1 of the pattern. As I said, you don't need the card in the reader, only if you need it for memo information. But whether the card's in the reader or not, you need to still press CF in order to begin the pattern. Now, if your row was on, your pattern wasn't starting on row 1, and it was starting, say, for instance, on row 20, you would just press 20 on the display with the ready light on and press CF, and it would take the card to row 20, or the pattern on the display to row 20. But I want row 1, so I'm going to press 1 and CF. So now we have our row number in the main display on the machine. When we knit across, it will select the patterning needles for this row, as you can see. We'll add in our second colour, press multicolour, and I can start knitting my motif. And as I say, with the card in the reader, it's not reading it at this point, it's just advancing it through the reader itself, just so you can see visually any memo information. That's all that it's doing, it's just advancing through, it's not reading anything. So now I will need my pieces of yarn for wrapping. As I said, if you were just doing a design that was all over, you'd just start knitting back and forth now. I'm going to just show you here this motif. Just thought it would be a bit more fun than an all over pattern. You can see each row we knit, the card advances through the slots with the row numbers. And that corresponds with the row numbers on the pattern panel. When you get to the second to last row of the pattern, the machine beeps at you. And then your needles are selected for the last row. And you knit the last row and it selects the needles for the next repeat, which we're not going to knit any further repeats. You see the card returns to row 1, as does the number on the pattern reader. The computer. Lost for words there. Now I can just turn the machine off and remove the Mylar sheet. Remove the second colour. And I'll knit a few rows and take it off the machine. So if we compare what we read into the 950i from the Mylar sheet, you can see that's what we've ended up with. And of course I've had to flip the sheet over because obviously it will come out backwards unless you reversed it, then it would come out exactly as printed on the sheet. But there you are. That is how you read and store and program patterns using the Mylar sheet reader on the Brother KH-950i. Hope this helps.